Welcome everyone to this webinar. Really excited to be here and hopefully share some insights on how to monetize open banking together with David from GF Money. A quick introduction, I'm Solveig Hölscher, as Jan already mentioned, and the sales manager here at Finshark. David, would you maybe like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm David Öhlund, and I'm the CEO of Scandinavia, so I take charge of Sweden and Denmark for GF Money.
Amazing, thank you. So a brief introduction of Finshark and who we are before we kick it off with the exciting parts, which is the use case we're going to discuss today. So Finshark is an open banking provider based in Sweden and operational in the Nordics, covering all major banks. We're 40 plus employees now and a tech team focusing on developing our proprietary API platform. And when it comes to open banking and how to monetize it, we're going to go through some very interesting use cases. Just a little bit more about kind of our mission or why we exist. So it's really to turn open banking into business successes. And what we do is really quite simple. So online banking, so account-to-account payments, instant payments, payouts, premium financial insights for any industry. And as an open banking provider, we have a full license by the Swedish Financial Supervisory Authority, FSA, for both payment initiation and account information services, which means that we can work with both payments and real-time data. We've also passported our license to major markets within the EU. And this is just to show the companies that we are very happy to have the opportunity to work with. It's quite a big mix, as you can see, from startups to enterprises. And what's really interesting here is that it's no longer only banks or financial companies that work with open banking, but there are very many more industries, and we're lucky to work with over 10 different verticals. And yeah, some of the great stories and use cases started right here. This is just to showcase the different types of products that can be used within open banking for different businesses. So you can go from instant payments like Plexian and GF Money has done, or premium insights like Bolagspartner and Vilja have done, or instant payouts. Our partner Quiddly uses that mostly. So over to you, David, at GF Money. Maybe you can introduce GF Money in more detail.
Yeah, so GF Money is a consumer lending company or a fintech hub, however you want to phrase it. So we are based in Helsinki, and we currently operate in 4 different areas. So it's Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Spain. And our prime focus are revolving credit lines or credit cards. That's our main focus product. And we use open banking for multiple things. First of all, of course, together with Finshark, we initiate payments from our customers to pay, for example, their invoices or pay on their debt. We use Finshark right now in Sweden and Denmark, but we also do open banking for a lot of our underwriting process, for example, making credit decisions and so on.
Let's go over and talk maybe just briefly about the Nordic landscape when it comes to payments and open banking. So as we all know, the Nordics is really paving the way when it comes to open banking together with the UK. I'd say the UK may be the number one placeholder, but the Nordics is definitely a runner-up. And we all know how digitally savvy region we are in. Denmark, Finland, and Sweden are the EU's actually most digital countries in the most recent annual EU report by the European Commission for the Digital Index. And so when we talk about this, and from that perspective on the different payment options out there, so what do consumers really want? And we're taking it from, the most traditional, so credit, debit cards, moving on to invoice, and that also includes buy now, pay later. Mobile payments are very local. As we all know, in the Nordic region, in Sweden, we have Swish, for example, and then we have open banking payments, which, from our perspective at Finshark, is really future-proof and the way forward, where we're cutting out intermediaries and streamlining processes. But with this in mind, even though there exists differences locally, what a recent report by Svea Payments has found is that what Nordic consumers want and what's homogeneous for all of the Nordics are really three things. Number one, options, to be able to choose the payment method that they want for any given purchase, whatever is convenient for them and that specific purchase, and trust, right? So how well do I recognize this provider? How familiar am I with this kind of interface, or is it in a certain environment that I'm already familiar with? Do I have to leave an interface to make a payment? So all of this really comes down to convenience, trust, and then of course speed. How fast can I pay my bills? Right now it's very, very instant. So you want it to be done in a couple clicks. So there are quite a few things to think about, and obviously we want to meet consumer demand and hopefully even more than that. But when we look at what payment option to use, it's also interesting to look at it from a business perspective. So what payment options both meets consumer demand, but also helps us and is aligned with our business strategy. So if we do want to scale across the Nordics, what payment could we use that works throughout? And we believe that open banking really does both meet consumer demand in terms of that it's scalability of it. It works across the EU, and also it is the future. You're cutting out middlemen. It's cost efficient, and it's just bringing kind of banking into completely different industries that weren't possible before. And I'm going to move it over to you, David. Maybe you can give us some insights in how you chose from a sea of alternatives when it comes to both, your business in Sweden and Denmark. What was your thought process there?
Yeah, sure. In Sweden and Denmark, there are different kind of options to pay. So for Sweden, usually it's you have auto payments on that is scheduled on invoices due date, and then you have, for example, normal invoice payments. And doing normal invoice payments has been and will be, if you're not using any of these new kind of things, will be a pain in the sure. It will take a long time. You have to copy details in order to your bank in order to pay. But for example, if you use this open banking type of payment, then you could essentially just be 3 clicks away and a bank ID signing to process your payment. And in Denmark, there's even more options to pay. One of them being mobile pay. Then you also have same classic thing that we have in Sweden, where you have to copy things. And then, of course, you can do payments with open banking. And for example, for Sweden, we already have auto payments for our invoices, but customers also wants to pay down on their debt whenever they feel like. So by implementing, for example, open banking payments, we have been able to increase our cash flow, and customers are happy that it no longer takes a long time to process the payments. And as for Denmark, it was an even better move to open banking, because before we in Denmark, we don't have auto payments on invoices. So customers had to manually copy and paste information into their bank in order to pay. So what we did that, since we already implemented things in Sweden for Finshark and open banking payments, we could do the same in Denmark. And we have our own CRM system in the group, which essentially we were just copying what we did in Sweden over to Denmark, changing a few settings, like which market it is and which payment reference we have. And by doing this, we could implement Finshark in our flows within half of a day. Because in our CRM system, we work with modules. So if we do something good in one country, we can mobilize it and then move it over to other operation countries. And of course, there's always options to do mobile pay, which is also popular in Denmark. Our problem is that in Denmark and Sweden, we don't
take the receivables ourselves. It goes to our financing and invoice partner, which makes it a little bit more complicated to set up payment flows. And setting up a payment flow with, for example, open banking is much, much easier for us.
Cool. Thank you so much, David. And I think our time is almost up, but just very briefly about implementation options for open banking. David, you kind of touched on the topic. Could you explain more why you opted for a direct integration over maybe using a platform provider?
Well, we have the knowledge in-house to be able to connect to the API, and we can also then adopt the UX or the flow to what we like. For example, then it enables us to create for example, our own payment links where we can send out to customers who wants to pay, and then they could just be 1 or 2 clicks away, being able to pay their invoice by just clicking the link and so on.
Perfect. So
it opens up for more flexibility for us to tailor the payment experience for the customer.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much. That said, there are other options. So depending on, going back to kind of understanding what best suits your business, I think it could be interesting to consider, is it direct integration the best way forward for us? Do we need this flexibility and this ownership moving forward? Or do we want to go with a provider where we can kind of plug and play? Another option is we do have a platform called Streams, which is a code-free open banking platform. You get, your login credentials, and you can basically be up and running with open banking products within minutes. So there are different kind of ways forward to start testing this and to see, how it might suit you. And yeah, I guess our time is up. So unless you have any more insights or anything to say, David, then I think I'll wrap it up from my side.
Nothing more than, if you're not into open banking yet, please be.
Yeah, I'm in on that one. All right. Thank you so much. That's all from us.